Now, the UN says they are one of the most persecuted minorities in the world, victims of segregation in Burma. Many of them have fled to neighbouring Bangladesh, but now they're left across the border in squalid ghettos where living conditions are terrible, and they're no more welcome than they were in Burma. Well, France 24's reporters have been to witness the plight of the Rohingya Muslims.
The sun has just risen on the southernmost part of Bangladesh. Behind this mountain are thousands of men and women who we have come to meet in secret. These refugees are Rohingyas, escaped from Burma. Officially, they do not exist, as this precarious and unsanitary camp is illegal. But for the survivors that have made it here, it is a sanctuary, the end of a torturous journey.
I've been struggling to survive for a month. I fled my village to hide in the jungle. Half of my family was killed. The army and police were responsible for the violence.
Very quickly, we are escorted through the camp. Foreigners are not allowed in this area. It is in this secluded hut where we will collect the testimonies of the most recent arrivals.
They arrested my husband. I wanted to protect him, so they tried to rape me. They broke my arm.
Among the traumatized population, a disturbing number of families are without men or husbands.
My husband was taken away by security forces. I don't know if he's alive or not. I've had no news since.
These thousands of Rohingya have fled Burma following renewed inter-community violence, shown here in this amateur footage. Clashes began in June in the remote northwestern state of Arakan, where Muslims and Buddhists have lived in a fragile coexistence for generations. Tens of thousands of Rohingya have fled here to the Teknaf region in neighbouring Bangladesh, adding to the more than 200,000 refugees here that have been steadily rising over the years. But nobody wants the Rohingya. They number at least 1 million and all are stateless. Jamal, a member of the underground Rohingya network, says the exodus is ongoing, but the Burmese and Bangladesh security forces are doing everything they can to prevent it.
Many Rohingya Muslim people are starving there. There is no food, no essential medical assistance there.
Wherever they go, the Rohingya are met by the same hatred.
The Rohingyas are like a disease. They come here in their hundreds. They steal our jobs. We don't want them here.
The border is completely sealed. The Burmese fear testimonies of the Rohingya will get out. Bangladesh are determined to push back any refugees. However, we meet a family that has just crossed the border.
We have nothing left to eat on the other side. There is a curfew, but only for us. We can't go out. Everyone is scared and trying to escape. There's too much violence in Burma. God help us.
The Rohingya are among the world's most persecuted minorities, bereft of the most basic rights. Rohingya children who are born today or tomorrow will have no land and no future.
Well, joining me now is Matthew Smith. He's Senior Researcher at the Asian Division of Human Rights Watch. Thanks very much for being with us today. I know you put a report together for Human Rights Watch on the plight of the Rohingya there. Just tell us how all this started in the first place and how bad their situation was when they were still in Burma.
Yeah, that's right. The situation is quite serious for the Rohingya in Burma and Bangladesh, as you've shown. The sectarian violence started in June, but this is really emblematic of decades of abuse that the Rohingya have faced. This is a population that's denied citizenship, abuses such as forced labor, arbitrary detention, mistreatment in detention. These are abuses that have been going on for decades. And then, of course, when the violence started in June, we documented how the authorities in Burma, the state security forces, not only failed to intervene to protect either community, but eventually started to target the Rohingya. So we've documented killings, rape. There are credible reports of torture and mistreatment of those Rohingya men and boys who've been detained in the country. So the situation is quite serious.
OK, well, let's talk about the authorities in just a second. But since they've moved into Bangladesh, has their situation improved at all?
Unfortunately not. The conditions in the camps in Bangladesh have been squalid for years. There are, however, a handful of international organizations that are providing aid to the Rohingya population, both the registered refugees, which number about 30,000, and a couple 100,000 others that are living in the surrounding areas. The authorities in Bangladesh have ordered three international organizations to cease their operations providing aid to the Rohingya population. At the same time, they've sealed the border. So a lot of the Rohingya who are fleeing persecution, violence, and abuse in Burma are not being met with even temporary protection in Bangladesh.
So would you say that the authorities in either country have done anything to help these people or to put an end to the suffering that you've been describing? And could the political change that's obviously happening in Burma at all help these people in the future?
Well, the Burmese authorities have, after a fair amount of attention to this issue internationally, the authorities have started to pay a bit of attention. They have allowed a limited amount of humanitarian aid to reach affected populations in Arakan State, including the Rohingya. However, there are still huge pockets of displaced Rohingya in the country that are not receiving the aid that they should be. And of course, one of the bigger questions, the roots of it, the citizenship issue. There's very little political will in Burma, unfortunately, to amend the citizenship law, and that's an issue that needs to change urgently as well. So this is. There has been a bit of attention by the authorities, but overall, the situation is not improving very much.
So with the potential rise of Aung San Suu Kyi's party in Burma, you don't think that might help at all?
Well, one would think, given her track record of speaking out for the least advantaged populations in the country. However, there has been a silence on the part of Aung San Suu Kyi on this issue. This is due in part to there's a widespread discrimination against the Rohingya population across the country in Burma, and unfortunately, this is continuing the problem. This is making the problem worse. It certainly makes achieving solutions to this issue much more difficult when even the human rights activists and pro-democracy activists in the country are holding discriminatory positions toward the Rohingya.
OK, Matthew, thank you very much for joining us. It's Matthew Smith. He's a senior researcher at the Asian Division of Human Rights Watch here on France 24. That was today's focus. Do stay with us. More news coming up very shortly.